The devil all the time. This is a Netflix movie about, well, what's it about? Well, you know, it's about a bunch of messed up hicks is what this film is about. There's a whole lot of people in this movie, and not a single character falls under the category of normal. I wanted to see this movie. I was intrigued by the trailer, a lot of actors in it that I liked. I really enjoy this film. I think it's very, very good. There's even things about it that I enjoy more than almost any other movie I've seen this year. It does have flaws, noticeable flaws, apparent flaws, and I will talk about those. But let's jump into what I liked. Every performance in this movie is amazing. Like, across the board, with this big ensemble cast, everyone knocks it out of the park. But I want to give a shout out to a few people. Harry Melling, if that name doesn't sound familiar, he was Dudley Dursley in the Harry Potter movies. Talk about a blast from the past. He's in this movie for 10 minutes. Like, amazing. Like, in the first 5 minutes he was on screen, I'm like, this guy's going to get an Oscar nomination. Now, he won't. I'm not going to spoil anything, but he's not in the movie that much. But he's great. Tom Holland. And we know Tom Holland. He's the main character in this. We know him as Spider-Man. He's a great Spider-Man. And we love him in that role. And seeing him be excellent in this movie, it's not a surprise. It makes total sense. Spider-Man's not an easy role to play. There's a lot of balance that comes with that character. I talked about that in a video essay I made. And seeing him in this... Like, he's not Daniel Day-Lewis and There Will Be Blood, right? But I was watching this and I was just thinking, you know what? I'm going to call my shot here. I think Tom Holland is going to end up being one of the 5 or 10 biggest movie stars of my lifetime. There is a magneticness to him as a performer that you just don't see from a lot of other actors, especially leading actors in movies. He's phenomenal in this. Really, really carries this thing. Even in the moments where it seemed like it was going off track, he grounds it, and he's awesome. Robert Pattinson, dude, this guy is on some kind of roll, from Good Time to The Lighthouse to Tenet, which I still haven't seen. Please, Governor Whitmer, open movie theaters in Michigan. To this, to The Batman, which is coming out next year. This guy has become one of my favorite actors working. And the run he's on right now, you know who it reminds me of? It reminds me of Johnny Depp in the 90s. Because they've kind of had similar career paths. Because Johnny Depp in the 80s was much like Pattinson in the mid to late 2000s, was a teenage heartthrob. You know, he was in Nightmare on Elm Street and 21 Jump Street and other products I assume had the word street in them. And then all of a sudden in the 90s, it seemed like when he teamed up with Tim Burton, he took a lot of risks as an actor. And that's what you're seeing from Pattinson. It would have been so easy for Robert Pattinson after Twilight to just take on every leading man role, every James Dean Light romantic comedy, romantic drama role. He hasn't. He's gone the indie route, and he's taken on some very disturbing, dark characters. This maybe being the most disturbing of the bunch. Knocks it out of the park again, man. This guy is remarkable. And much like watching Christian Bale in the early 2000s, it's like you watch Pattinson now and you're like, wow, yeah, there's really nobody else better suited to play Batman right now. He's killing it. All the performances are great. I think the direction here is really good. I think it was shot on film. I'm not an expert when it comes to that stuff, but it has that grit to it, that grain. I think they were going for the look of some kind of horror-ish movies, like from the 70s and 80s, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something. It has that kind of ugliness to it, which I appreciated. This is a horrifyingly violent movie. Like, not just blood and guts. It's not violent in the way that, like, Saving Private Ryan is violent. It's psychological violence. Now, it is bloody as well, but if you were doing a checklist of all the possible disturbing things you could see in a movie, this would cross off 95% of them. I mean, there are so many horrifying things that happen in this movie, and by the way, that's a compliment. Good. This is a movie about deeply disturbing, horrifying people. It should be deeply disturbing and horrifying. I give it credit for not shying away from the violence. I don't think it's gratuitous. They allow the violence to tell a story. It was very necessary. So I like the performances. I like the director. I like the violence. I like the cinematography. I liked how it was shot. There are some things about it that don't quite work. One big one that stands out right away is there's a voiceover narration in this movie, and it's completely unnecessary. I think this movie is based on a book, and my guess is they took a lot of that expository dialogue straight from the book, but what works in a book doesn't always work in a movie, and it doesn't really work here. I think a majority of the time, voiceover in movies is pretty unnecessary, but if you have something like Fight Club, you know, where the voiceover added character to the film or added moments of comedic relief, it can really work. It doesn't necessarily work here, and I thought you could have completely taken all of it out of the movie and missed nothing. There's some really weird musical choices in this film. You know, I get what they were going for. They were going for that kind of gospel bluegrass type of music, the type of music that would be played in this part of America, but it doesn't fit the tone sometimes. Like, something really disturbing will happen, and it'll be followed up by a scene of, oh, here's the Lord, he loves everybody, ding-a-ling-a-ling. It didn't fit, and kind of took me out of the movie at points. The biggest problem I have with this film, though, is just from a storytelling perspective, it's a bit clunky and a bit muddled, and especially in the middle part of the movie, I was very unsure of what film it was trying to be. Like, sometimes it's trying to be Zodiac, sometimes it's trying to be Natural Born Killers, sometimes it's trying to be Children of the Corn, sometimes it's trying to be A Place Beyond the Pines, which is a movie about legacy and kind of the damage that a traumatic childhood can have on a young kid. It tries to be many different things, and because of that, it never quite succeeds at being any of them. And not to mention, the movie runs probably like 20-30 minutes too long as well. I am so torn on what rating to give this movie, because I'm between a 7 or an 8, and I want to give it an 8, but the problems I've been telling you, like a movie with a muddled story, that's a big complaint. That's a complaint that can drop a movie down a few rating points. There's not a lot of movies like this. Like, this is, especially in 2020, a very ugly, pessimistic movie. This is a movie that a lot of filmmakers would not have the balls to make, and I do give it a lot of credit for that. And you know what? Because of what I just said, I'm actually going to bump up my rating. I was at a 7, I erased it. Well, that's quite the 8 that I drew there. Oh, boy. Ugly. I'm giving this thing an 8 out of 10. Because, to me, there's a big difference between those two. 7 is like, hey, this is a pretty good movie. You should check it out. 8 is really good. I recommend people go see it. And that's how I feel about this movie. I want to give it even higher than an 8 because, like I said, there's not a whole lot of movies like this. But 8 out of 10, I think that's a good rating for a very good movie. It's one that sticks with you. And I could even see myself ending up enjoying it more because there's something, much like Holland's performance, there is something magnetic about it. There's something that really gets into your head and sticks with you. Like, I went for a jog after I watched this movie, and I didn't even listen to music or anything. I was just thinking about this film, and I think any movie that sticks with you the way that this one does deserves an 8 out of 10 rating. So, yeah, good job, movie. You can follow me on Twitter at Castellani2014. Also, I've started to do commentary tracks for movies. I did one last night for the notorious Hollywood bomb Batman and Robin from 1997. If you want to listen to that commentary track, here's what you do. Go to my Venmo account. My Venmo account is the same as my Twitter handle, at Castellani2014. All you got to do is send me $1, leave me your email address, and I will send you a copy of the commentary track to listen to. I really like doing those, and I want more people to listen to them because I enjoy dissecting film, even bad films like that. So thank you very much for tuning in. I will see you later. Peace and happiness.